when I've asked what's happening with the lab. It's frustrating to watch more work being contracted out. Contractors always cost more money. So it's disturbing that way. And as a resident of this county, as an individual, I'm really concerned to see these critical, vital services not being under the purview of the county to the extent they are when it's done in-house. And I think we're going to lose services and have services done less effectively. I understand we're in very hard times, and I don't envy the position that you all are in making these decisions, but I really encourage you keep the life spark there and look toward rebuilding and reestablishing the lab as a county resource. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McClure. Any other members of the public want to speak on this? Okay, any final remarks from the staff?
Thank you, Chairman Pinches. You know, when I got here in '07, actually over the past couple years, we've been looking at the lab, and I believe that the public speakers have made a lot of good comments, and the one about the lab being on life support, I think, is fairly accurate. When I got here in '07, it was clear at that time that really what is the necessity of the lab. What we have done in this lab has basically been chlamydia testing. I don't think that the public sees specimens go to our lab, but they've been going to Sonoma County for a long time. We have done very little testing in our lab here in this county. One of the reasons why we are suspending the lab services and not closing the lab services is for the intent of looking at if there are problems, can we resurrect the lab? But I can tell you, we do very little services, and unfortunately, that is the case, and secondly, it's not seen by the public because specimens have gone to the lab. So essentially, by suspending the lab services right now, what we have done is just eliminate the middleman, because the specimens have been going to Sonoma County for a long time. What we've also done is provided more services locally by contracting with Ukiah Valley Medical Center, which is why I believe this is a best practice model. And the last thing I'll say is that we are not alone in this county with the lab services, just as with other services in health and human services across the state. The requirements for a lab director and for staff in public health lab is something that the state is looking at and other counties are looking at as well. It is difficult to recruit and retain staff, particularly because the state has such rigid requirements for public health, specifically community public health lab directors. So at this point, we see that the best option is to suspend the lab services and take a look at what the outcome will be. We believe that we'll have a better outcome in this county, and that also we will be providing more services locally with our effort with Ukiah Valley Medical Center. And at this time, I'll answer any questions that you would have.
Yeah, Supervisor Smith.
Supervisor well, I'm actually ready to make a motion, so if you have a question.
Well, yes, I do have a couple questions. In the document on the notice of public hearing that we received, it says arrangements have been made via 2 separate memorandum of understandings to continue necessary services. We don't have copies of those documents. Do they have specific time frames?
We can get you copies of those, and yes, they do have specific time frames.
And what are those time frames?
I have 2 memorandums. I'm sorry. My name is Stacy Cryer. I'm the Community Health Services Branch Director for Health and Human Services Agency. I have 2 separate memorandums of understanding. One is with Ukiah Valley Medical Center. One is with Sonoma County Public Health Lab Services. I have not signed either of the memorandums of understanding, waiting for the resolution today at this hearing, but they're both for 1-year terms up to a maximum of 3 years.
So they could be renewed or changed
Yes.
in a 1-year period?
Yes, every
See,
year.
I think that's important information when we're making a decision like this. If we vote on this, we don't have the full impact of our decision. And so the suspension issue is of a concern to me, given the public comments, understanding from the director that tests have actually already been going to Sonoma County for an extended period of time and so forth. But the final part of the memorandum for the board talks about why this is not a lab closure, it's a suspension. So I guess the question is, what are we getting into? And since this is a changing environment, wanting options to reassess, So are both of those, because it talked about two separate memorandums for, in your proposed changes, and then it references as a third, I would assume, between the County of Sonoma Department of Health Services as a separate one. So it really references three, doesn't it?
It should be two memorandums of understanding. The model
Okay.
that we're using for the lab is we're using Ukiah Valley Medical Center to collect the media, basically,
Right.
and then to send it on to Sonoma County for us. They will also be processing non-traditional public health lab tests, such as chlamydia, that they can process here locally.
But given these questions about suspension and the quality of services and needing to be able to have points to evaluate, if we go ahead with this, does that mean that in a year's time, it could be reevaluated? We're not held to a 3-year contract?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor.
With the explanation from staff
Okay,
and...
wait a minute here. If there's no other comments from the board, then the public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
And we'll entertain a motion.
Thank you. And I also understand there's a projected savings of $200,000 a year. I will move approval of the recommended action.
Second.
And a second by Supervisor Brown. Okay, just a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to break for lunch. Or
Mr. Chair, I was just wondering, Jennifer Wyatt is here on break from the courts.
Well,
I didn't know how lengthy the questions were.
the problem is we
Supervisor
told the
Smith.
people from the RAC to come back at 2 o'clock.
But
And
maybe
if she could transmit the
answer
Maybe she
questions.
could. Can you do that real briefly, Jennifer? That'd be great. Thank you for working your lunch hour.
Well, I'm thinking she can provide the information either to the assistant CEO or the CEO. I personally have an appointment at 12:15, and I'm
Well,
going to leave.
That'd be fine.
Yeah,
That's
later.
fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jennifer, go ahead. If you, thank you for taking time off your lunch hour.
I thought we were,
I'm here-
no.
We need to do this
think-
later, I think.
Yeah, I think we should make sure it's conveyed.
Well, I
we
thought
have-
you wanted to hear the information now.
Pardon?
I thought you wanted to hear that information now.
Not I think,
No, it's,
Oh, okay,
let's take a lunch break and get a decent lunch break for once.
okay.
Jennifer, are you on jury duty?
Thank you. I'm on break from jury duty. I have to be back at
So I'm saying
1:30.
she won't be able to come back.
So
at
if
2
there's any,
o'clock.
I'll just try to give the information as much as I can to the assistant to answer your
That'd be fine.
questions.
Yeah.
You can't be fair
Yes.
because you're worrying about your work.
Hey, you never put public
It's important.